Hi there, and welcome to this episode of The Race Advisor. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at how important recent finish positions are in analysing a race. There are loads, literally hundreds of betting systems out there that have one of the main factors in the decision of who to bet on being the recent finish position of the horse. And most commonly, this is did the horse win in its last race or did the horse place in its last race? And if a horse won or placed in its last race, then this is considered to be a really valuable piece of information about how the horse is going to perform today. And my question is, are recent races actually as important as these systems make out? Is that true or false? And that's what we're going to be investigating in this episode. So we're going to start our investigation by looking at the performance of horses who have placed or come in the top three in their last race and how often they actually go on to win their next race. Now, in the sample of data that we're using to do this analysis, there's just over 132,000 runners who came in the top three in their last race. And of those, just over 21,000 won. And that's a strike rate of around 16% or just under. But in terms of return on investment, that would be losing minus 17.44%. So nearly 17.5% of every bet would be lost to SP if this was the only piece of information you took into account. And that's a huge amount. Losing 17.5% of every bet on average if you were betting at SP, if you only take into account whether the horse came in the top three last time out. So we can immediately see that any system that uses this sole criteria as one of the main factors is already on a down foot. It's not as simple as finding a horse that performed well in its last race. However, we can get the results to increase very slightly, particularly the strike rate, by only considering horses that won last time out. And now if we take the same data set, and remember we had around 132,000 runners who had come in the top three last time out. If we take that same data set but only consider the runners who won last time out, that's reduced by around a third to about 44,000 runners. So we lose 2/3 or 66% of our data, of our selections, are lost by only considering the horses that won last time out. And the strike rate goes up very slightly from around 16% to about 17.5%, and the return on investment increases very slightly from around minus 17.5% to around minus 16.25%. But the difference isn't that big, especially considering we've lost 66% of the selections in doing that. So that immediately tells us again that actually concentrating on horses that won last time out as opposed to horses that came in the top three last time out doesn't really benefit us. It removes most of our selections and it doesn't really increase strike rate, it doesn't really improve the return on investment significantly. So we're better off sticking with horses that came in the top three last time out. What we need to do is we need to break this data down differently. We need to think about coming at it from a slightly different angle if we want to try and get a better return. And one of the ways we can do that is by seeing how many days it's been, or days since last ran, since the horse last was in a race. So we're still considering only horses that came in the top three last time out, but now we're going to break those down into horses that are running for have had less than 7 days break, have had between 8 to 14 days, between 15 to 21 days, 22 to 28 days, etc. So different break periods between that last race and the one they're about to enter. Because if a horse performs really well in a race and only has a couple of days before its next race, possibly it may be exhausted. It may not actually run to the level that it ran previously because it hasn't had a long enough break. On the other hand, another horse may actually require that level of fitness to be sustained. so it needs to race again quickly. On the other hand, we may have a horse who hasn't raced for 180 days since it placed. So actually that horse may need a few races to get into racing again before it's back up performing at the level it was performing at when it placed. So if we break down this data into days since last ran, we discover that by far the best performing is horses who came in the top 3 last time out and are returning to another race within 7 days. And this not only produces a significant increase in strike rate, but it also produces a significant increase in return on investment. So the strike rate jumps up to just over 20% from around the 17% mark, or the 16-17% mark, while the strike rate while the return on investment improves from around minus 17% to minus just under 8%. So we've made a massive improvement there. We've gone from a minus 17% return on investment to a minus 8%, or just under 8% return on investment, and from around a 16-17% strike rate to just over a 20% strike rate. So horses that are coming back to run within 7 days and came in the top 3 last time out definitely have an advantage over the other runners. But let's also have a look at the class levels. So maybe that a horse is returning to race in a class 1 or class 2, class 3, class 4 race. Do any of these make a significant difference? Well, they make a small difference. So horses returning to race in a class 1 race, we actually decreased the strike rate. So horses that placed in the top 3 last time out had a strike rate of just under 16%. Horses that placed in the top 3 last time out and are returning to a class 1 race only win just over 12% of their races. So the strike rate for class 1 runners decreases quite rapidly there. However, the sweet spot is horses coming back into a class 4 race. So their strike rate is just over 17%, so not much of a difference really from just the horses that placed top 3 last time out. However, the return on investment is around minus 15.5%, which is better than the minus 17.5% that horses achieve in return on investment last time out when they came in the top 3. So there's a slight improvement by only considering horses that came in back to race in a class 4 race after their previous run. However, if we place all this information together, so horses that came in the top 3 last time out are racing again within 7 days in a class 4 race, now they perform the best. So that strike rate goes down to up to just over 21%. So we've got a really strong strike rate there now. And the return on investment to SP, don't forget this is to SP, is just under minus 7%. So we're losing just a little bit more than 7% of every bet if we bet those runners, but that's to SP, which means that actually if you're using best odds guaranteed with the bookmaker and actually hunting for odds, just using those 3 simple rules, you're going to be pretty much break even and possibly even into a slight profit as well, just using those 3 rules combined. So the strike rate and the return on investment are vastly improved by adding in the rules that a horse must be coming back to race within 7 days and it must be going into a class 4 race. However, of course, that is still no guarantee that the horse is going to perform well again next time out, and there are various other factors that you should also be considering once you've narrowed the field using this information. So always think twice before using a system that relies too much on recent finish positions, because recent finish positions on their own are not strong factor in generating a profit from your bets. Thank you very much for listening to this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye for now.